Morning.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Kate Marand. I'm a program manager at the Department of Small and Local Business Development for the Innovation and Equitable Development Division. And we are incredibly excited today to be hosting our government colleagues from the Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection with a really important and helpful session. It's a reminder session for some of the important things that all registered entities in the district and small businesses as well need to be doing by April 1st. So we have a number of wonderful staff from DLCP, so I'm going to turn things over to them to say hello and then to jump into the presentation. I think I'm turning things over for the hellos first to Vicki, and then I'll let you guys take it from here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Vicki Matthews, as stated. I have been here at DLCP VP for a little over 10 years, and my role here is a senior paralegal specialist with the Corporation Division, and happy to be here.
My name is.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. My name is Rebecca Janovich. I'm the Superintendent of Corporations Division. Very excited that the Department of Small and Local Business Development set up this session. So I just want to thank Kate and her team so much for facilitating this. Because yes, it is important. We like to reach as many people as we can. And I just think this is a wonderful partnership. So thank you all for taking the time this morning. And we're excited to have a chat.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dominic Molden. I'm the Deputy Superintendent of Corporations for DLCP. And I'll pretty much be starting us off so we can cover the topic of the DLCP and the processes for registering your business. All right. I first want to let you know, so DLCP Corporations Division pretty much plays a vital role in the supporting businesses in Washington, D.C. And we act as an official corporate registry for overseeing registration and filing processes for various entities. And we're pretty much the corporations is the first step in regulatory compliance for the district. Today's topics we'll be covering will be the BRA 25 biennial report filing, what it is, who needs to file it. Also cover trade names. We'll go through a demo where we'll walk through the entire process on Corp Online from beginning to end to give you an idea of what the process looks like and how to navigate your way through it. Towards the end, we'll also cover the new federal beneficial owners requirements, which started at the beginning of 2024. And we'll also leave some time towards the end to cover any questions you may have. All right, so to get us started, we'll go with what is a biennial report? And so just to give you an idea, biennial report is basically it's the initial filing document that's required. So a biennial report is a BRA 25. It's a document businesses registered with the DLCP need to file every 2 years. Although the first report is due the following April, the following year, April. This report keeps DLCP informed about your business activities and ensures your records are up to date. Think of it as a way to check in with DLCP, letting us know that you're still operating, provide any necessary updates to your business information. Also, to cover briefly, there are a few things that you'll be able to update with your biennial report as it shows here. This is also kind of, as I mentioned, just to kind of keep things may change over time or throughout that year period from the time that you file your initial report or between the 2 years that you are filing. we have a few, the items mentioned are the items that you'll be able to make adjustments while following your up-to-date report. And these here are a list of the entities that are required to file. So basically, pretty much every entity is required to file a report, with the exception of a few, but as you see, corporations, limited liability companies, nonprofit organizations, limited partnerships, limited liability partnerships, general cooperative associations, and limited cooperative associations, as well as statutory trusts. This here kind of gives you an idea of the schedule. So if you were to, as it shows here, if you were to register your business 2023 at any point last year, your first report will be due April of this year. And then from there, your report will be due every other year as follow. This is also kind of give you a brief overview of how that looks in action. So if you're the process of when your business or when you file your BRA 25 report, it allows your business, basically you have a few requirements that you'll have to meet, but from that point on, your business will be active and in good standings. After April 1st, your business won't be in good standings, but it also will not be revoked. So you have until September the 1st to then file the report and take care of any necessary details that may have come up along the way to avoid being revoked. Once your business is revoked, then you'll have to come back into into active status by filing any past due reports and also updating any required information. Another topic I would like to cover is trade names. We often get a lot of questions about trade names because it can be a bit confusing because it differs from the entity. The entity isn't necessarily required to have a trade name, as well as a trade name isn't required to be a part of an entity. So basically, a trade name is also known as a doing business name. It allows your business to operate under a name that differs from its legal name. This can be helpful if your legal name is long and complex, or if you want to use a brand name that better reflects your business offerings. For example, a business with a legal name, ABC Inc., might choose to operate under a trade name, Creative Designs. This is so the trade name renewal. Trade names need to be renewed as well to hold on to the trade name. This also is a part of operates on a 2-year term, but can be completely separate from the biennial reports. From this point on, we'll go over a demo to, so we'll start to walk through the demo so you can see what the process is like, and I'll hand over screen share from here.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so this is the fun part. Okay, so we're going to actually go through the process of actually filing the BRA 25. When setting up your account, it is suggested that you only have one account because we are not able to merge multiple accounts. For instance, if you forget your password. So if you do forget your password, that you do a reset. Okay, so I'm going to log in the second icon. Your first current biannual report to file. Okay, so this is the instruction sheet. Okay, if this is your first time filing the BRA 25, I would suggest that you thoroughly review the instruction sheet because it pretty much explains some important information. Okay, then you just click continue. Okay, so you're going to select your organization. Okay, so you do not have to put in the suffix of an organization. Okay, so once your organization is populated, this is a hyperlink. So all you have to do is click on the name of the entity, do a search. Okay, so when you get to the report year, the system automatically tells you what year is required to be reported. And then you click continue. And this comes to the point of the business address that Dominic stated earlier. You are allowed to change the business address while filing this report. So if no changes need to be made, you can continue on. As well as the registered agent. For instance, if your email has changed for the registered agent, I suggest that you change it and always keep this information current. Or you may want to select a commercial registered agent because you may not want to use your address. But remember that registered agent does charge a fee. Okay, and you can also, this information is required, but if you do need to change your purpose, you can do that as well. Okay, so this is the beneficial owner section. Okay, so anyone that owns 10% of or more of the business, or they does the day-to-day operation, or they have financial stake, or they conduct financial, you have to enter their name here. Or if changes need to be made at this point, you can do that as well. So you can click continue. And this is the validation sheet, because this allows you to look over all the information that you entered. And then if you need to make changes, you can always go back and make corrections. And this is before you pay. Okay, so this is the payments section, and where you'll put all your credit card information in, and you're going to keep continue to click on continue until it tells you to go back to home. And once you go back to home, you're going to see 3 categories on our home page. All right, underneath the icons. So with a 2-year report, that filing is automatic. So you're going to actually see that under your approved services section. It's going to be a green plus sign that you can download the document as a PDF. So we're going to move into doing a trade name renewal. So you're going to click on renew it. And as I stated before, yes, read over their instruction sheet. Okay, then you're going to enter the entity's name. Do a search. Okay, click on a hyperlink. And then this is really, it's quick. It's pretty easy. And you're basically going to go through the same process as paying, and then it'll appear under your service management section. So if you need to enter this information, is very important as well, if it's not already entered. Again, this is another validation page to make sure all information is correct. And that's the payment. So the process is not, it's not that hard. It's a quick process. Okay, so we're going to go through the fees. Okay, so the fees for filing the for-profit is $300. The report for nonprofit is $80, and the trade name renewal is $55. But after April 1st, there's a penalty. So there's $100 for profit, $50 for nonprofit, and $55 for renewal. So you can see that you need to file your filings before the due date. And then we're going to go through what happens if you miss a deadline.
Give me 1 second. I'm having trouble seeing the PowerPoint when I share my screen.
While Rebecca is doing that, I want to make another point. April 1st, it may fall on a weekend, which means that the filing is still due by April 1st. So you can make these filings if that April 1st falls on a weekend. Okay, so this what happens. Okay, so late fees applies after April 1st. So again, there's $100 late fee for profit. Non-profit is $50, and the trade name is $55. And what happens after April 1st, the filings, you're not in good standing, and the entity will only come back in good standing until after that report is due. It's filed, I'm sorry. But if you need a good standing and you have not filed, and it's after April 1st, and you have filed that BRA 25 or the trade name, you are not able to get a good standing certificate until it is filed. And once it's not filed after September the 1st, your entity can become revoked. And that's what you do not want. And then if you have a trade name, the trade name will be canceled as well. The entity will be out of compliance. You should not be conducting business, and the name is no longer protected, and you will have to reinstate, which you will have to pay additional fees. And once the trade name is canceled, the business should not be utilizing the trade name, and the name is no longer protected.
Okay, I think, thank you for that, Vicki. And we can stop there at this section before we jump into the new federal beneficial ownership requirement law and address some questions. And so, thank you, Camille, for organizing these for us. Flip them over here. So I'm staring at the screen. All right, so question number 1. I recently changed my business address and had to pay for a new biennial report. A month later, I have been asked to pay again for the 2-year report. How do I address this? So without knowing the specifics of the situation, there's a couple of things that could have happened there. It could have been that your entity was in revoked status. When you go into revoked status, you cannot do any filings with us until you come back into good status, good standing and active status. So we would have had you file past due reports in order to come back into active and good standing. And then when you come back into active and good standing status, you revert back to your original reporting schedule. So if you owed a 2020 report and a 2022 report, and you filed those both in 2023 and filed for reinstatement, you're going to revert back to your even year status. So you still owe a 2024 report, even though it feels like you just did a biennial report. Now, if your business address changes between reporting periods, it is important to keep your information up to date with us. So in that case, you would come to us and file an amendment. Now, it could be that you were coming to us to file that amendment, found out you were in revoked status and had to file those reports. The good news there is you can update your business address in that report, so didn't have to file the amendment. But again, without knowing the specifics, that's one of those two cases is what probably happened. You were in revoked status, or you filed an amendment and then the report came around again. All right, so the report is due before April 1st. Shouldn't that read the report is due by April 1st? The code says by April 1st. You know, we get a lot of flack from customers over the years that say it should say before. You know, we use before April 1st just so that everyone doesn't miss that deadline. You know, waiting until the last day is never a good idea for a couple of reasons. I know we're all human, so we do it. But The amount of people that filed their reports in the last 2 weeks of March is astounding. And so what that does, and that's okay, it's on time, but it slows the system down. And so you don't want to run into any technical issues. You know, we try and keep it, we give it all the server power we can and all the capacity we can, but you know, waiting until 11:50 on April 1st, not the best idea. So, you know, if you know you'll report this year, my advice is why not do it today? And then get it out of the way, and it's not hanging over you. Why is it required to file a biannual report if you are still in the business registration phase? So you don't need to file a biannual report at the registration phase. So your initial filing happens, and then your first biannual report is due the very next calendar year by April 1st. And then by April 1st, every 2 years thereon after. So yes, you register, you register with us, you go to our OTR to get your FR 500 account. You do a few more things, you get your BBL. And then, you know, when the next calendar year rolls around, that first report is due. So if you registered in December of 2023, your first report would be due by April 1st, 2024. If you registered in January of 2023, your first report is due April 1st, 2024. It goes by calendar year. So my last report was filled out in 2022. Will I get something with instructions? Not sure how to get started. So my advice is, you know, log into Corp Online. On that homepage, on the bottom half, there's a Find My Organization search bar where you can search, and shows you some summary information about your entity. If your entity is inactive and in good standing, and you have the proper registered agent on file with us, that registered agent should have gotten an email at the end of January, early February, reminding you that a 2024 report is due. You'll be getting, or that registered agent will be getting another reminder email in a couple days. Now, if you have a commercial registered agent, we send everything to the registered agent. That's who we contact. So if you do use the services of a commercial registered agent, then the notice would have gone to them and they should have passed it on to you. But there are instructions in that reminder of go on Corp Online. And so, and you can also give us a call, and we're going to put contact information in the slides and send them out. But let's move on to the next question. Do DBA trade names require separate registration or extra fees? Yes. So a DBA is a completely optional thing for registered entities. It's if you want to operate under any name that is not your business name. So, and that includes the suffix. So if I started a shop called Rebecca's Piano Shop, LLC, on my shop signs, on my business cards, on my website, it should really always say Rebecca's Piano Shops, LLC, unless I file a trade name that just says Rebecca's Piano Shops. Then I can drop the LLC on my sign, or I can make the trade name whatever I want. Doesn't have to be anything to do with pianos. Maybe I registered my LLC as Rebecca's Piano Shops, but I actually make donuts. So my trade name will be Rebecca's Donut Shop. Now, so yes, it is a separate registration. It's a separate fee. It's $55. The other parties who might want to register a trade name are sole proprietors. So these are not registered entities. You're just in business for yourself. You didn't want to register an entity. That's totally fine. But you do want to do business under a name that is not your legal name. You are welcome to register a trade name, or as well a general partnership. General partnerships don't register with corporations, but they're welcome to register a trade name. Okay, question 6. When you transition from an LLC to an S Corp, what form should you complete to reflect there has been a structure change? and you do that via some portal. So it's a good question. It's not the topic of this presentation, but I will address it. It's you would file a conversion. So you're switching model types, we call that a conversion. So you do have to do that by mail, or you can do it in our walk-in center. We do charge an expedited fee if you do the filing in person, so just keep that in mind. But all our forms are available on our website. And so you're looking for a, I believe it's a GN13 conversion form. Now keep in mind, we don't recognize an S Corp, that's a tax designation, so you would just be switching from an LLC to a corporation. Question 7, do you have to add a spouse as a beneficial owner? Well, that depends. Does your spouse own themselves more than 10% of the business? Do they have control over day-to-day operations? Do they make financial decisions for that entity? If so, they are a beneficial owner. But if they're not involved in the entity, no need. Just by virtue of being your spouse, you don't need to add them. Can a volunteer be a beneficial owner as well? Great question. Yes. And this is, you know, people will come to us and say, well, I'm a nonprofit. Nonprofits don't have owners. But keep in mind, it's a two-part definition. It's people who have 10% stake in profits and shares, or those people who have control over day-to-day operations or control over financial decisions. So if that volunteer has that role, they should be named as a beneficial owner. Can I change the name of the company on the report without paying a fee? Great question. You cannot. So you do need to file an amendment to change the name of your company. You cannot do that on the 2-year report. Okay, question 10. For a nonprofit, do I list the full board of directors as beneficial owners or just the executive director? Another great question. It depends on the structure of your nonprofit. How much power does that board of directors have? Are they just an advisory board, or do they help make those financial decisions or direct the day-to-day operations of the business? So that's a determination your nonprofit would have to make. Okay, question 11. Is the fee $300 standard, or does it differ by entity type? For all for-profit entities, it is $300, and for all nonprofit entities, it's $80. So a nonprofit entity is obviously a nonprofit corporation, but it's also a general cooperative association and a limited cooperative association. Question 12. How can a higher education university file online? Or do we have to paper file? Oh, so if you're an act of Congress, you should be able to file the 2-year report. You should be able to file the 2-year report. So if you're unable to, let me know, or email, the email will send out, but there should be no problem to file the 2-year report. Other filings, yes, you might run into some problems there. Okay, question 13. Can you have multiple trade names? You can. You can have as many as you want for your entity. Absolutely. Can you speak to how these fees are determined? Where does the money go? So the fees are determined by council. The money goes to the city. So we are generating a revenue generating program, and all that money is used to feed into other services across the city, not just DLCP, not just corporations. Question 15. If the registered agent for a nonprofit left, can the rest of the board members get into the account to file the BRA 25? These are great questions. I'm wondering if we should move on to the next section after I answer this one, just so we don't miss. I'm just looking at the time, but it's the registered agent for a nonprofit left, and the rest of the board members get into the account to file the BRA 25. This is a great question. So you don't need to get into a specific Corp Online account to file for any specific entity. So basically, you can start a new Corp Online account, search that entity, and file the report yourselves. It doesn't have to be filed by the registered agent, but if your registered agent, yes, has left the company or resigned, you can just go into Corp Online, appoint a new registered agent via the report, and go from there. All right, so I think we've addressed 16. Yeah, if you file on April 1st, there should not be a late fee. But it does have, the system is programmed to put in the late fee on April 1st, and every year we override it. So to save yourself a headache, I would just really recommend that you file that report before April 1st. You know, we stay up till midnight to outsmart the system. And some years it just, you know, she's fickle sometimes, but she's handling a lot of reports. So we are proud of her. Question 17. All right, so let's park it at 17. Yeah, let's park it at 17 and move on to the rest of the presentation, and then we can maybe address the rest of them at the end. I don't think we'll get through all of them. I'm seeing there are more than 50. So let me continue on with the presentation. Okay. So this is, I'll say up front that this is something brand new that the federal government has just enacted. It's a new law. It's been in the press lately, ironically, because they're getting press because no one knows about this new law, but it's a very important law, and the fines for not following this law are quite steep. So there is a new federal law called the Beneficial Owner Reporting Requirement that came into effect under the Corporate Transparency Act. So we're going to talk a little bit about what you need to know as a business owner in fulfilling this federal requirement. Now, the Corporate Transparency Act was passed in 2021, and the whole point of it is to make it harder for companies to use, shell companies to use anonymous LLCs, corporations, etc., to launder money, to transport drugs, human trafficking, all of the above. So what they are asking companies to do now is to report who ultimately owns and controls them. And they call these the beneficial owners, as DC does. And you have to give this information directly to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, called FinCEN for short. And so this is referred to, the report you have to file is called the Beneficial Ownership Information Report. We're going to call it the BOI report for the rest of this presentation. And as of January 1st, this is an active law. So you might say, well, you just told me about the BRA 25, where I have to report beneficial owners. Do I have to do that again to the federal government? And the answer to that is yes. It's a completely separate report that FinCEN requires. And the information you report to us, and we'll get into this a little bit, there are some differences between how we define the beneficial owners, but you know, you have to give this information to us via the BRA 25 report and to FinCEN via the beneficial owner report. So let's talk about what the differences are between DC's beneficial owner law and the districts. And I'll just say up front, there's no cost to file this report with the federal government. All right, so what types of entities must submit a BOI report? Basically, if you filed a document with the Secretary of State or Corporations Division in DC, you must report your BOI information to FinCEN, and they refer to these as reporting companies. Now, what makes this law a little bit confusing is there are 23 exemptions to what is considered a reporting company, but I will say that they largely don't apply to small businesses. So, there's been a lot of complaints about the CTA law being that it's a burden on small businesses, because it is those smaller LLCs and corporations that bad actors set up to hide behind. But if you have, I think it's more than 20 employees or more than $5 million, for example, you're considered a large company and you don't have to report. In DC, there is no such exemptions. Everyone needs to file a beneficial ownership report. What company info is required? So keep in mind when you're reporting this information to FinCEN for the first time, they don't know anything about your company. So you do have to tell them what your legal name of the company is, any trade names you have registered, your business address, the jurisdiction it was formed in, and your taxpayer identification number, which most often would be the EIN. In DC, we already have this information on hand when you're filing the BRA 20 report or registering with us. What information does the federal government want about your beneficial owners? So it's similar to DC. They want your legal name. We don't ask for your birth date. I'll put it right here. But they do. They want your address. They also want an identifying number from some sort of ID document, and they want an image of that ID document. In DC, we are just asking for the names and the home and business address of your beneficial owners. Who is considered a beneficial owner? So how is the federal government defining the beneficial owner? So this is someone who either directly or indirectly exercises substantial control or owns at least 25% of the ownership interest. So it's very similar to our definition, except our threshold is 10%, where theirs is 25%. So it may not be the same people you're reporting to the federal government that you're reporting to DC, because maybe you have 10 owners and they each own 10%. And in that case, from the ownership stake perspective, none of those people meet the definition for the federal government. But if they have control over the company, then yes, you would report all of them as well. So they also, for entities formed in 2024 and beyond, they also want to know who the company applicant is. And so in DC, we kind of consider the company applicant to be the organizer or the incorporator. The federal government wants to know who that person is as well. So the good news about the FinCEN report is you file it once, and you only need to go back to it if your information changes about who your beneficial owners are. For us, we collected at initial registration and on the biennial report. So, this deck will go out. There's a lot of links in it that you'll see coming up. But you can go directly to the FinCEN site to file this report. Now, keep in mind, there is no cost to file this report, and the fraudsters are hard at work. So if you see anything come your way with a QR code that says scan this, asks you to pay a fee, if you get a form that looks like an IRS form, we got one in the mail the other day, it was form 4022, looked exactly like an IRS form. It said the fee was $117 to file your beneficial ownership information report. That is a scam. This report is free. So always go directly to FinCEN's website. The link is here. Now, and again, in DC, you give us this information. It's not a separate report. You do it on initial filing. You do it on the biennial report. If your beneficial owners change between your reporting years, then you would just file an amendment with us to keep that information up to date. All right, so more information will be sent out in this deck. We have, the federal government resources, which are very good. So I would recommend checking those out. the compliance guide is very good. So we have resources on our website that just kind of helps you understand the differences more between the two requirements. But if you have specific questions about the federal government law, our program, we can't provide much expert advice on that because it's not our law. And so we can't provide any sort of legal determination for you on whether or not you need to file, who you need to list there. So I would just leverage those federal government resources. They do have a phone number, and also reach out to your business network, your lawyers, your accountants, who can also guide you in this. All right, so questions. Kate, how would you like us to just kind of address as many questions as we can in the time we have?
Is comfortable for you. I know we did get a couple of BOI questions, so just so that we don't miss those.
Yeah.
And I think most specifically, and I can just read that out, is
Sure.
Is the transparency law also for nonprofits, or is it only for for-profits?
Yeah. So it's a great question. It includes nonprofits. And however, charities are tax exempt nonprofits are exempt from the beneficial ownership law. Now, I might have skipped this slide, or I didn't put it in, but I'll make sure it's in before I send this out. I didn't talk about the deadlines of filing this report. So for entities formed prior to January 1st, 2024, so you already were in existence, you have 1 year to file this report with FinCEN. So January 1st, 2025 is the deadline. Any entity set up this year after January 1st, 2024 has 90 days to file this report. And that's only for the first year. That's going to get reduced to 30 days starting in 2025. And the fees for not filing this report are steep. They can be up to $500 a day that you haven't filed by the deadline. So while nonprofits are exempt, nonprofits aren't exempt. Tax exempt nonprofits are. But keep in mind, if you started a nonprofit today and you went to the IRS to get your tax exempt status, it takes about 18 months. So that means you only have 90 days to file your FinCEN report. So you're going to have to file that FinCEN report between, until you get your tax exempt status.
Thank you. And then the other questions that have come in on this, and I'll just mention, I've dropped in the chat that the DC Bar Pro Bono Center is offering a clinic on this coming up on April 6th. So we have dropped that information in the chat. We don't know how much availability there'll be, but that is something to do. The other two questions that came in is, do churches have to file? And what is the deadline to file for 2024?
So for a church, it depends what kind of structure you are. If you're a tax exempt nonprofit, you do not have to file. If you are not a registered entity, some churches don't register, but they get a charitable license, you wouldn't have to file this. But if you're a church that's an LLC or a corporation or a non-tax exempt nonprofit, yes, you would. So it just depends. And so check out the FinCEN website, check out the list of exemptions, and see where your organization fits. The deadlines, I think I addressed those. For entities formed prior to January 1st, 2024, you need to file the FinCEN report by January 1st, 2025. Any entity that is formed January 1st, 2024 or after needs to file that report within 90 days.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And since I know we have a lot of questions that had come in, I think we did receive over 50 on the earlier pieces. I think maybe one good piece for us to address right now is a little bit about how is the best way for people to follow up? What are the types of questions that should be coming to DLCP corporations? What are the types of questions that may actually be a business licensing or a tax question, and I'm happy to help answer that too, and where folks might take those, and then any other recommendations you have for when something might not be a question for this space, just sort of overall. So what would be the best way for folks to be reaching out? What are the types of questions that make sense to be coming to the DLCP corporations?
Can I add one piece there? I would say one question we also would like to address is how is DLCP notifying businesses who must file 2024 reports? So I think that's something we can touch on as well, real quickly.
Yep. So I'll touch on that one first. So we send a reminder to the registered agent of your entity. And so every registered agent, as long as we had complete information for that registered agent, and that's very important that people on that validation page, you make sure all the information we asked for is there. They would get an email with a reminder that the report is due. That went out early February this year. Another reminder will go out today and tomorrow. Commercial registered agents have already received a second reminder with the list of entities that they represent that over-report this year. So that's what we do. These are courtesy reminders. You know, we're here to serve. We have no interest in people forgetting to file their report. We really just want people to stay inactive in good standing. It's the best thing for the district, for everyone to be in compliance. So if you didn't see a reminder go out, my advice to you is to go onto Corp Online, search your entity, and look at your reporting schedule. There's a reports tab. Once you click on your entity name, and see if you're on an odd or even year schedule and what your last report filed was. So, you know, if your last report filed was 2022, you owe a 2024 report. Or if you registered in 2023, you definitely owe a 2024 report. So, okay, so that's that. And for Kate, your question, you know, I think the best thing to do would be to email us your question. You know, I see repeats in categories here, so we can kind of address those when we send out the slide deck, if that would be helpful. But, you know, if you have a business licensing question, you know, you can also send it to the same email address. When they come in, they get triaged to the correct area. There was another program you mentioned, Kate.
Oh, tax. There were a number of tax questions,
yeah.
because these are all the basic setups that people have, and there's some interaction between them, but they're all operated by slightly different divisions or sections of government.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't answer tax questions because we don't know enough, and tax is complicated. So those would have to be directed to OTR.
And that's the Office of Tax and Revenue. And for folks
Yeah.
on the line, if you registered for this session, we do have a session with the Office of Tax and Revenue next week. They may also not be able to answer very specific tax questions. Some of those may need to be answered by a tax professional providing you with some additional information. But I'm going to mention just a couple of other themes in the chat. I know we've got about 4 minutes left. The first one I want to mention, someone had asked a number of times that they had mailed a paper file and a paper check, and they haven't seen it cash and they haven't heard anything, and they're just not sure how to follow up or what to do in that sort of circumstance, and so they were hoping for some guidance.
Yeah. If you haven't seen the check cashed, I would cancel the check. So checks they don't take too long to be cashed. They go to the bank first, and then the bank cashes it and scans your document and sends that document to us. So if it hasn't been cashed, I would imagine it's lost. The best way to file, honestly, is online, because you get a copy of your document right then and there. You can see it in the history. And the only evidence you're going to get of a report filed if you file it by mail is if you go into your entity and see that report there. But if the check hasn't been cashed, that's a red flag. Real quick, I do want to answer Daniela's question about being in the business registration phase, because I think it's important to dispel any confusion. So once you're registered with corporation, you're an entity. It doesn't matter if you go to OTR to get that tax account. It doesn't matter if you have a BBL yet. We consider you a formed entity. So you would still owe a report. Like once we approve your initial registration and you're in our registry, the clock starts. So if you registered in 2023, no matter how far you are along on getting into compliance with the other programs and the other steps, from a corporation standpoint, you will report. Now, a link I will put in the slide deck before we send out is to the DC Business Portal. It's a new portal, which is a very helpful checklist of all the things you need to do to get your business up and running. Corporations is just the first step. And we understand it's confusing in DC, other states as well, but you know, this checklist is very helpful in providing some clarity.
Thank you for that. I think there's one more question on registered agents, but Rebecca, I'll add this in and see if this is something that we often share with small businesses. But as you're sort of the expert on this, we want to make sure that we're right. One way that we often describe the difference between corporations and licensing is that a corporate entity is a state level sort of requirement in many states that have statehood. You would go to the Secretary of State's office. And then licensing is a municipal or city level function that is often tied to zoning. And so you see these in the same agency here in the district because of our unique setup as a federal district at this time. And so you'll see those things come together, but they're operating at different levels of government. Please correct me, Rebecca, but that's just one of the things we try to help folks see.
No, I mean, I've never looked at it that way, but it's true. In DC, it's a little, I think it's a little simpler because you're not, you don't have to figure out your county rules that may be different from, all across the state. And the counties and the municipalities are the ones giving you the business license. Here, it's just us. But yeah, we are, secretaries of state form businesses. And that's what corporations does for DC. We're the business registry. You don't exist as a domestic entity until you're on our registry. And you shouldn't do business if you're registered somewhere else. Like if you're formed by a different state, you shouldn't do business in DC until you have registered with us.
And then I know we have 1 minute left. Last two questions. One, if you're able to share that email address, I know we'll send it out, but we'll also drop it in the chat. If someone could just share what the main email address that someone might want to reach out to with questions are. And the last one, just because we saw this come up a lot, is if you could share just a little bit more about what a registered agent is. I think some folks are familiar and other folks are not. So just to describe what that role and function is.
Yeah. So a registered agent is all across the United States, every state corporate registry, they have this concept of a registered agent. And the registered agent is someone who will be available at a physical location, in theory, to accept notices, summons, legal complaints, etc., about your business. And so the registered agent has no liability in your business functions. They are not responsible for anything your business does. Their only job is to collect these notices, these reminders, these communications, these subpoenas, and pass them on to you. You can be your own registered agent. All you need is a physical DC address. Now, people who don't have a physical DC address or don't have a friend or family member with a physical DC address, that's when they would go to the commercial registered agent. So there's these companies that exist that you can pay to be a registered agent. They have a physical DC address and they take it upon themselves to be like your mail forwarding service. But it's the registered agent is the person courts want to see that, if you're trying to sue a company, that you go to the registered agent to try and sue a company. But that's who we communicate with. Just keep in mind, the registered agent is a very historical role in the world of business registries, whereas beneficial owners, that's a very new thing. So DC is the only state right now that collects beneficial owners. And you've seen how new this federal requirement is. So, yeah, the registered agent has no liability, has no responsibility for what your company does, is not going to get in trouble if, you know, a company they represent is doing illegal things, but they do have that responsibility to give you communications, notices, etc.
Thank you. And I'm just going to wrap us up. I want to say a huge thank you to Rebecca and Dominic and Vicky for today's presentation. We had a lot of people who registered, a lot of people who joined, a lot of people I know who are waiting for the slide deck and the recording. So I'll just share again that information will be coming out to all registrants. We'll also include that email address that is in the chat, but I just want to say thank you for today. Thank you everyone for being here. We know this is super helpful, and please make sure you check Corp Online. And if you need to file your biennial report or renew your trade name, please be sure to do so. Once again, we'll also distribute that information from the DC Bar Pro Bono Center about the Clinic on Beneficial Ownership. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop our recording.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you everyone for coming today.